Welcome to the Weather Gurus podcast for August 16th, 2025. This is a special Hurricane Erin update. Hurricane Erin update for August 16th, 2025. As of the 8 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, we're looking at a late Category 4 hurricane here with winds of 150 miles an hour sustained at the center, moving west at 15 miles an hour here. The system is undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle, and this is expected to last for the next 6 to 12 hours here, and that's why there's some weakening with the system here. So expect the next full advisory to come out at 11 p.m., and the system will continue to weaken probably down to 140 miles an hour or so as it undergoes this eye wall replacement cycle. Now, you notice there's strong convection on the south and southeast and southwest side quadrant of the system. You notice that there's a little bit of gap on the western side here. It's entraining a little bit of dry air. The system is able to fight that off as it's a mature hurricane. They typically tend to do that. But you can see the fanning of the cirrus clouds, high cirrus clouds above the infrared satellite here. A great outflow pattern. A little bit ragged, but great structure here. Earlier today, it became the earliest Category 5 in the North Atlantic Basin here. And it also became the rapid intensification. It was up to 165 miles an hour sustained winds here. Category 5, making it the first Category 5 and the earliest Category 5 here in the Atlantic Basin that we've had. First major hurricane of the season, 2025, some statistics, Hurricane Erin. Now it's passing right now about 150 miles northeast of San Juan, Puerto Rico, 120 miles away from Anguilla Islands. They are experiencing rain here. Once again, this is going to be some flash flooding in the mountainous areas, as you know, in El Yunque Forest and eastern Puerto Rico, and they may be experiencing 4 to 6 inches, 7 inches locally higher of rain, as well as rain off in Calibre, Veracruz, U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. You guys are getting 4 to 6 inches of rain, and Anguilla as well, 4 to 6 inches of rain. Now, back in the other part, Barbados, Montserrat, Saba, St. Eustatius, a clear day, just some high cirrus clouds and a few occasional pop-ups from the outer bands of Hurricane Erin. So that's what's going on with Erin here. Forecast guided model here. This is some of the AI models. You can notice a trending westward track of all the models and consensus models here, away from Bermuda and away from the East Coast. Now, this could change. We'll know more of the situation probably here. This not being used in place of official sources. This may change, and I believe it will change. It'll be more of a westward track, putting more of the Outer Banks into play here as the system advances here. Now, this is more of the early track guidance here, as you can see. Kind of split the hairs here between Bermuda, which is 685 nautical miles off the Cape Hatteras here, and then somewhere in between there. So this is where the center of the circulation is. Of course, our impact can be felt outside the cone, as we know. But the bottom line is that the model guidance is going to continue to track westward here, and I believe because of this eye wall replacement cycle, remember, it's going to gain a new center of circulation, and possibly a bigger eye. That tends to happen when it goes through these cycles. So right now, the eye is very pinwheel-like, less than 50 nautical miles. Less than 30 nautical miles, wide. But once it regains that eye in the morning, you see on the visible satellite, it probably is going to regain a little bit bigger of an eye. Nothing crazy, not like a big old donut eye or something like that. But it will be a bigger eye. An eye wall formed around that. Sometimes it has concentric eye walls, double eye walls. It just depends on, you have to wait to see what comes out of it in the next 12 to 15 hours once it completes that eye wall replacement cycle. Once again, Hurricane Erin, a dangerous Category 4 system on the San Francisco scale. It winds right now at 150 miles an hour. I expect it to continue to decrease tonight to around 140, possibly 130. And then afterwards, it'll maintain stability here as it continues to make its way past Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands into Sunday, heading towards Hispaniola and Turks and the Caicos Islands here. Now, you can see on the water vapor here, there's Erin down there, bunch of moisture. You can see the little bit of moisture in Florida, a little bit of moisture heading up into Georgia. But we have this dry slot coming across the mid-Atlantic here from the Delmarva up into the northeast. And it's all dependent on this system here. The major turning point for most people, and most people in the forecast cone, is going to be after 48 hours. So after we get past Tuesday, does the system make this huge turn, fishhook turn out to sea, affecting everybody minimally, with just leaving us with high surf and rip currents, which the East Coast can deal with and Bermuda can deal with, or does it continue to shift westward? Does all this cone stuff continue to shift westward? And that, like I said, that puts the mid-Atlantic into play. That puts the Outer Banks into play. And now the good news is that even if it does shift all the way west, like some of these models here have, let's say it shifts all the way west. Worst case scenario is that it comes in, let's say somewhere and Wilmington, North Carolina comes ashore as a category 3, you'll be on the comes partially onshore. Let's say it makes a partial landfall, okay? And Wilmington, somewhere between Wilmington and North Myrtle Beach or something like that, right? We'll be on the western side, so that's the weaker side. However, we're still going to get impacts. I don't want to minimize that, but I'm just saying a hypothetical scenario, the worst case scenario. If it comes in, we'll be on the western side, like a partial landfall. The eye will stay offshore, and then the eye will hook off across the Outer Banks, and it does that turn that this thing is saying here, that most of the models are saying here, and then to pull out the sea. That'll put the Mid-Atlantic into play, unfortunately, and we'll have a lot of flooding along the Chesapeake and the bays, all the bays and inlets and rivers, I'm sure. But that'll be, the worst case scenario that we would see with Erin. And at this time, if let's say if the turn is late and everything, and the system slows down to 8 miles an hour, moving northwest, and compared to 15 as at now, I believe the system's going to slow down. I also believe that the wind field is going to expand, obviously. Right now, hurricane force winds extend out 30 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds extend out 185 miles from the center. Let's get the official numbers on that right here, because I don't want to tell you anything, that's not official. So, the official numbers on this system right now with the tropical storm force winds, there we go, yep. Tropical storm force winds extend out 185 miles from the center. Hurricane force winds extend out 30 miles from the center. Now, with this eye wall replacement cycle, there's two things that can happen. The wind field could expand. Obviously, we know that's going to happen. And also, the winds could weaken or stabilize. Okay, so it could drop down to a category 3 momentarily. Okay, let's say for a day or two. So, let's say, for instance, the hurricane force winds extend out. They double. They may extend to 60 miles nautical miles out, right, from the center. And the tropical storm force winds, they're going to double. This is going to extend to about 240 or 250 miles out from the center. I guarantee you, once the eye wall replacement cycle is complete. And no surprise there. Now, like I said, the big news is going to be that turn with the system. You will know whether or not the system is going to turn at the 72-hour mark. So you're looking at Wednesday. Wednesday is the pivotal day with this system, okay? Because if the subtropical high and this ridge all is building in, that means the system is going to be pushed more to the west, which I believe it will, and that's going to put the squeeze plate right here, the Outer Banks, Tidewater, Norfolk, all the way up to New Jersey short coast. You should prepare for more tropical storm-like conditions to be impacting your area. Sometime, if it slows down, then that means this thing's not going to get into that area until about Thursday night, Friday morning. That's going to be the time. That's going to be the time frame I would be looking at personally. Now, this is not official. This is just my personal opinion. But looking at the official models, they are trending westward. And the Hurricane Center did note that they thinking about shifting it western, the cone westward, even further here. So that's what I was just saying. So just something to keep in mind. By Friday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, you should be making preparations in the Outer Bank, in the Mid-Atlantic, and all those for a possible tropical storm impacts. I don't say hurricane impacts because the system itself could make a partial landfall and still be offshore. I don't think the eye is actually going to be coming ashore, but even if we're on the western side of a system that has 225 or 250 mile or even 300 miles tropical storm force winds, that means that we'll be in that cone in this thing here. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about in the graphics here. Okay, so we know the wind field is going to expand. This thing is going to expand with the wind field is going to expand here. So let me show you. Okay, so right now they have the cone just barely touching Bermuda to the east coast and then heading out in this Gulf Stream area in the Mid-Atlantic, right? Temperatures in the water, by the way, water temperatures here are about 83, 84 degrees. So it's warm, but it's not crazy warm like we saw in the 2004-2005 season where temperatures in the Gulf and the Atlantic were running 90, 92 degrees and all that stuff. We don't have that kind of environment at this time for Erin. But with that said, this cone is going to shift west, okay? That puts the Outer Banks and everybody into play. The wind field is going to expand, so you can expect tropical storm force winds at the peak of this thing on Wednesday here. And all this is going to shift too, because as the system slows down here, all this timeline is going to have to get pushed back later. So you're talking about Friday morning, basically, for the system to be up here in the North Carolina and Virginia area, okay? And tropical storm force winds are going to expand again. So we're going to have about 300 miles of tropical storm force winds and maybe about 40 to 50 miles of actual hurricane force winds, Cat 3 and above, or Cat 2 to Cat 3, somewhere around there. I'm not really sure. But it could possibly still maintain major hurricane strength. I believe it will. Somewhere around 115, 120 mile an hour storm, okay? But we'll be on the western end of that. People in North Carolina, anywhere from Kill Devil Hills, Medanthe Beach, up to Norfolk, up to Tidewater, and even folks inland from Richmond, D.C., Baltimore, Dover, Wilmington, Philadelphia, Jersey shoreline, and New York City. Your timeline is you're looking at about Friday morning into Friday afternoon, and then the system will quickly accelerate offshore Saturday toward Boston and all that, and then they head out toward the Canadian Maritimes and to make the hook, it'll accelerate to be picked up by the trough. So that's the timeline I have once again. Erin is a Category 4 hurricane. It will continue to a little bit weaken a little bit tonight, down to about 140, 130 miles an hour sustained winds as it undergoes eyewall replacement cycle. The wind field is going to expand into Sunday night. Sunday night, you get more advisory Sunday afternoon and the Sunday night where the wind fields expand. Erin's expanding, and it'll also be weakening a little bit more to about 120 mile an hour storm as it passes Turks and Caicos and the northern Bahamas. Is at that time on Wednesday that you'll see whether or not this turn verifies or the system shifts further west and misses the connection for the turn with the subtropical wedge of Bermuda High. If that happens, like I said, that will definitely put the Outer Banks into play, and as well as the Mid-Atlantic states. And you should prepare for tropical storm force conditions late Friday into Saturday. As the system will slow down, it's going to have more time to dump rain in that area. And of course, flooding and all that's going to be issued by the Hurricane Center later if this forecast track verifies. My own forecast track verifies. Okay, this is something I'm saying. But the official forecast right now is that it's expected to miss all these land areas, including Bermuda, by the way. And it's just going to split the hairs and head out to sea. But it looks as if this system is moving further west. And the connection that it's supposed to make on Wednesday in 72 hours to make that turn, it looks like it's going to be late in doing that because it's going to slow down and the wind field is going to expand and we're going to have a big system out there. So we're going to have a time period where tropical storm force conditions will be possible anywhere from Wilmington, Kill Devil Hills, Norfolk, Tidewater area, back up into Maryland, D.C., Virginia, Jersey shoreline, and even new parts of New York City, depending on how this thing hooks later on in the forecast guidance. And all of this is going to have to timeline. All of this is going to have to be shifted once again because the system's going to slow down. So it may not be up here at 2 p.m. Wednesday. It may still be trying to go north, northwest, or due west, and then make a turn. That's gonna be the big issue there. So we'll see what happens. The next advisory comes out at 11 p.m. The main advisory that we're gonna be looking at is tomorrow morning at the 11 a.m. advisory with Erin to see if it holds together and if it have completed the eyewall replacement cycle and everything. So once again, stay tuned to Weather Guru for the latest here on Hurricane Erin. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button. I appreciate all your support, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll talk to you soon. Hit the comments and questions if you have any questions, and I'll respond to that later at a later date. Be blessed. Take care. Be safe. Bye-bye.